Morning, Walter.
Okay, Tov, Mario. Was machst du?
Okay. And you?
Good, good, thank you.
Morning, Alan.
Good morning, Mario. Hi.
It's a long daf.
Morning, Ernie.
Morning, Ernie.
Good morning. New Masechta, Moed Katan. Mishachin Beis HaShlochin, Mashkin Beis HaShlochin. We're talking about the work you can do on Chol HaMoed. There, it's not as prohibited as Yontif itself, but there are some prohibitions. So, for example, a field that normally needs to be irrigated, it cannot rely on rainwater itself. So you're allowed to give such a field irrigation on Chol HaMoed, b'moed uv'shviyas, and during Shemitah. Bein mimayin sheyatza b'tchila, whether from a spring that just opened up on Chol HaMoed, flow there. Bein mimayin shelo yatza b'tchila, or from an old well. Aval ein mashkin lo mimei akshavim. You cannot irrigate from, let's say, a reservoir that had rainwater collected there. That's too much work because you've got to bring that water with pails and pipes. Also water that you have to schlep with pails. We don't make moats around grapevines on Chol HaMoed. We don't build like an aqueduct, which was not there to bring water to a field. We don't do that l'chatchila on Chol HaMoed. They allow you to do that during Shemitah. And during Chol HaMoed, you can't build one from scratch, but you can fix a broken one. If there are water pipes in the Rishus HaRabim that the Rabbim depend on, you're allowed to fix those on Chol HaMoed. The choitetin also, you can like do a roto-rooter, remove the dirt from a pipe or dirt, that has accumulated in one of these either pipes or aqueducts. You're allowed, you can't build these lechatchila, but you could fix roads, plazas, and mikvahs. The oisin called sorchei rabbim. Other works that the rabbim need, you can do on Chol HaMoed. Mitzaynas hakvaros, you can mark with lime the areas of graves, so Kohanim and other people will avoid the Tumah. V'yoytzen afal kloim, you can go to dig out kloim, which is combined wheat with grapes. You got to get rid of that. So you're allowed to get rid of that on Chol Hamoed. A newly opened spring. And you've told me you're allowed to irrigate from such a thing. Now, what's the issue regarding a newly opened spring? To oscillate and puli, since it's newly formed, and it's not really hardened yet. There's loose dirt, and the dirt can fill up the spring, so it won't work, and you might have to dig it out. So you tell me there, mashkin, that you're allowed to use such a spring. So mimayin shaloyot, an old mayan that doesn't have that poly, that there's no problem to osili in puli because it's firm, the dirt doesn't fall into it. The loss in puli, boy, is there any shaila? I mean, once you tell me you can do it from a mamayan shiyatza b'tchila, you don't have to tell me the other one because I would know that for sure. The Gemara says, Ami, no, we need both because it's itan mamayan shiyatza b'tchila. If you told me you were allowed to irrigate from a newly formed spring, Hava, I mean, I would have thought hachahu de beis hashalchin in beis habalo. It's such a mayan that you can irrigate a field that needs irrigation, but you could not use it. A beis habal is a field that doesn't need external irrigation. It gets enough irrigation from rain. So I would say on Chol Hamoed you wouldn't be able to do beis habal because mishum da'asili and puli. But an old spring we're not worried that it's going to collapse. The loss in puli. Aim, I would have thought maybe I feel beis habal nami because the tircha, you have to dig it out. Kamash malon. So the Mishnah is telling us loshna mayan shiyatzu b'tchila v'loshna mayan shelo b'tchila. Any kind of spring, beis hashalchin in a field that needs irrigation, you're allowed to irrigate on Chol Hamoed. Beis habal, a field that does not irrigation, low. You may not use any kind of spring to irrigate a beis habal on Chol Hamoed. Umay mashma dahai beis hashalchin lishna ditzachusa. Where do you see that a beis hashalchin is that it needs water, that it's like thirsty? When it describes Klal Yisrael in the Midbar, it says they were tired. You were thirsty and tired. So the word mashalhi with a hey could be, hey and ches are interchangeable. So that's how you get beis hashalchin. Umay mashma dahai beis habal lishna demisavusahi. I know that a beis habal doesn't need water, that it's well settled and it's well irrigated. Like a young boy or a young man has relations with the besulam. Just like a young boy with a young girl fits, and therefore it leads to children. So it's a well-settled field, doesn't need external irrigation. Mantan and the B'seida in Arvachalo comes out that our Mishnah is saying that if you don't irrigate the field, you're going to have a lot of loss. You're going to have hefsid. So it's permitted, but to expand your field and to make more profit, not just to avoid hefsid, lo tarchinan. We don't do that kind of extra work on Chol Hamoed. B'makom Pseida you do, but b'makom Arvacha we don't. You know what? Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, this is the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. This is not. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov oimer, moishkin asamayim me'ilan le'ilan. If you have a field and you have many trees there, so you can draw water in ditches from tree to tree. As long as agav, as an aside, the field gets irrigated. We're talking about a field that's a Beis Habal field, which we said you're not allowed to do on Chol Hamoed. So, and on Chol Hamoed, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov holds you can't do work that's going to lead to extra profit, harvacha. Eimer Desham says Rabbi Eliezer harvacha de lo. Fine. You showed me Rabbi Eliezer, he doesn't allow harvacha. Tircha b'makom seida misham eslei. Where do we see that you're allowed to do tircha and chol hamoed to avoid loss? El Amar Rav Papa Hamani Rabbi Yehuda. Zeshita Rabbi Yehuda Tanya. Mayana yotze betchila, a newly formed spring. Mashkin meno afilu step Beis Habal. So this is like the Havamina we had before, that such a spring, since even though it could lead to a tircha of getting stuffed up, you're allowed, says Reb Meir, he's very makel. He allows you to irrigate such a field, even a Beis Habal field. It doesn't need external irrigation. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, no, like our Mishnah. Ein mashkin al zdei Beis Hashalchin shecharva. You can only irrigate a field that is dry, that needs external irrigation, but not a Beis Habal. Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah Omer loikach v'loikach. You can't do it. You can't irrigate any field. Yes, Rabbi Yehuda. Lo yafna adam amasamayim. The person shouldn't open up his irrigation ditch. V'yashke leginoso, and irrigate his garden. Now, my charva. What does it mean, charva? Ilem a charva mamish, completely dry, nothing's growing. Lamali the mashkele doesn't need irrigation. Rabbi shecharva mayan zeh. V'yotzelah mayin acher. One spring dried up, but now you have another spring. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah loikach v'loikach loishna charv mayona v'loishna loy charv mayin. That makes no difference whether the existing spring is dried up or not. Mayan sheyatza betchila, you have a new spring that opened up low, according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah. Umimai, who says Dilma Adkan Lakam Rabbi Yehuda Beis Hashalchin in Beis Habal lo. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda allows you to irrigate a Beis Hashalchin, but not a Beis Habal. What? It's because a new Mayan that opened up where you're concerned that it's going to fall back. You have to dig it out because Dilma Asilin Pulin, there's extra tircha. Of a Mayan Shalayatza Betchil, but an old spring, the law Asilin Pulin, which is not threatening to fall, and you have to do that extra tircha. Filo Beis Habal Nami. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda would allow you to irrigate even a Beis Habal field. So in Kain Masnis Naman Tamaya. But then our Mishnah doesn't have anybody who is going like it. Like we said before, it's Rabbi Yehuda who holds that we don't care what kind of spring it is, whether it's an old spring, a new spring, Beis Hashalchin in, Beis Habal lo. Only you can irrigate a Beis Hashalchin, but not a Beis Habal. So even though he holds, it doesn't make a difference what kind of mine you're going to use. So why did the Mishnah specifically say a mayan sheyatza betchila? Lo yidicha koichad Rab Meir, to show you how makel Rab Meir is. That filo mayan yotza betchila mashke meno feels de Beis Habal. He went to the complete extreme. That even a spring that you might have to do a lot of work with, and even to irrigate a field that doesn't need irrigation, because it relies on rainwater. Rab Meir allows it on Chol Hamoed. Itmar. Hamenachesh v'hamashke mayim lizroim b'Shabbos. Menachesh is like weeding. Mashke is irrigating. And you do this to seeds on Shabbos. Now this is a Av Malacha. The Shaila is Mishumai Masrinim Bey. What hasra, what warning do you give a person if you see him doing it? Rabbi Omer Mishum Choyresh. This falls under the category of plowing. Because it's like a charisha. Rav Yosef or Mishum Zoreya. No, you're keeping seeds going. There's an Av Malacha Zoreya. Rav Yosef says it's Mishum Zoreya. Amar Rabba Kavasi Didi Mistavra. It's more logical the way I'm learning that it's charisha. Because Madar Kashal Choshel Rapui Ara, when you use a plow, you loosen the earth. Hanami, using a hoe to weed and to be mashke is merpui ara, is similar to choresh, which is to loosen up the dirt. Amrav Yosef Kavasi Didi Mistavri, he says the opposite. My svar makes more sense. My darker shel zareya. What's the point of seeding? Litzmuche pera in order to grow peras. Achanami mitzamech pera, here you're leading to better growth of the fruit. Amalei abai l'rabba lidit cha kasha. Rav Yosef kasha. I'll ask a kasha on both of you. Lidit, you Rabbi, have a kasha about, because you said it's charisha, mishum charisha, mishum zareya lo. Fine. You've proved that it's charisha, but it's also zriya. And Rav Yosef kasha mishum zareya, mishum charish lo means you're both wrong. Maybe the principle is, if you have two malachos, you're maybe only chayiv one, and therefore you have to choose which one it's most close to give the hasra. Let's say a person is pruning branches from a tree. Now, when you prune branch from a tree, it allows the tree to grow better. So there's an inyan of notea, planting. And however, in this case, you need the branches that you're pruning for a fire. So that's koitzer, right? When you cut something because you need the item, so that's ktsira. When you cut something but you want the tree to grow better, that's natia. And Rav Kahana says, if you're zoymer v'tzrech leizim, chayiv shtayim. Achas b'shum notea, achas b'shum koitzer. So you see, there is no thing about, oh, you have to find which one it's most close to. You can give us for both. So kasha, on our question of menachesh v'mashka mayim, how do you give us ra? Esver of Yosef Larabba, who said that menachesh is chrisha. So menachesh v'machapel klayim, you dig around with a hoe around a mixture of grain and grapes so that you can reveal the roots, you can pull them out. Loike. The problem is you're loike because you're working with kloim. You're not allowed to work kloim. Rabbi Kiva Oimer Afa Makayim, even if you didn't work it, you just let it be and you didn't rip it out, you're also loike. You're over kloim. So Rav Yosef, who was the one who said that Menachesh and Mashkas is Zriya. So Bishma Ladidi says Rav Yosef, that means Mishum Zoreya, Hainu da Asira Zriya Bikloim. So that's why they assered when you plant climb seeds of wheat and grapes, there's a nisser. So when you hoe it, it's also a nisser. Al Zriya. But Ela Liditcha, but according to you, Rabbah, who learned that the Isra of Anachesh and Mashkes through is because of Charisha. There is an Isra of Zriya by Klein, but there's no Isra of Charisha. So this statement of Anachesh from Achapel Klein Loike makes sense only according to me that learns it has to do with Zriya, not Charisha. What could Rabbah answer? Omerle Mishum Makayim. You're Makayim climb through that action. You don't need Charisha, like Rabbi Kiva learned. You can't answer that because you quoted Rabbi Kiva, who argues with the Tanakam of that Baraisa, and says Makayim alone gives you Malchus. Obviously, the Tanakama who said Amanachish from Achapel Klaim Loike has nothing to do with Makayim because Rabbi Kiva is arguing. So the Gemara says, "Oh, you don't understand. Kula Rabbi Kiva he." There's no Tanakama versus Rabbi Kiva. The whole price is Rabbi Kiva, and it's in the structure of Umay Tam Komar. Means Hamanachesh from Achapel Klaim Loike. Why? Because of Makayim, right? My time Hamanachesh from Achapel Klaim Loike Mishum Makayim. Rabbi Kiva Rafa Makayim. My time Rabbi Kiva. Where did Rabbi Kiva get this thing about that Makayim Klaim, just not pulling it out alone as a loike? Now, I would ask, by being passive and being Makayim, you're doing Ein B'maisa. V'lav shein b'maisa, there's no malchus on that. Kvar hikshu Rabbi min harishonim. What about a lav shein b'maisa? Kosvu shekavona shoyis a maisa koshu l'kaim zoramel. There is a maisa. Kigon shabon. You build a fence around it, right? So that's a maisa, and therefore, why did you build a fence? Because you want to preserve it. That's a sign that you want the kloim to be mekayim. Now, where does Rabbi Kiva learn mekayim, but kloim is itself a loik? The Tanya sadcha loy zizra kloim. So zizra eli elazoreh mekayim inayim tamud loyma kloim sadcha loy. You can't even have kloim in your field for a second, right? If you don't say sadcha lo zizra, but you just say kloim sadcha lo, it implies that even mekayim kloim is usher. Nan, we said in the Mishnah, mashkin beis hashalchin b'moed v'shviyas. You can irrigate a field that needs irrigation, chol hamoed, and shmita. So I understand bishla moed ishum tirchehi. I understand why there's a debate by chol hamoed, because if a tircha yiseir is not allowed on chol hamoed. But makom pseida shara rabbanon. So the ikar din is you shouldn't do tircha on chol hamoed. But if it's a financial loss, chachamim allowed you to do it, even chol hamoed. Ela shviyas. But shmita bein laman davar mishum zareh, bein laman davar mishum choyreh. Zriyav charisha b'shviyas mishari. How can you permit zriyav charisha on shviyas? What kind of heter is this? Amar Abaya. Oh, b'shviyas bizman hazeh v'rebbi. We're talking about shviyas after the base of Midrash was destroyed, or after Yovel was stopped in the time of Sancheriv, where the Klal Yisrael was not on its land anymore, where Shemitah is only midrabanan, according to Rabbi, the Tanya. Rabbi Omer, v'zed var Shemitah shamot. B'shtei Shmitas hakosim davar, acha Shmitas karka, you got to let the ground rest. V'acha Shmitas ksofim, that any loans that are owed are wiped away. Bizman sha'atam shamik karka, atam shamik ksofim. It goes hand in hand. When you're living in a time where there's Shemitah karka, there would also be Shemitah's ksafim. Uzman she'iyatam shamik karka, iyatam shamik ksafim. The Rabbanan argue with Rebbe. And they say Shemitah bizman azez midaraisa. Now, I'm going to read the Rambam, Sefer Zroim, Hilchos Shemitah v'Yovel. Says the Rambam, Ein hashviyas noheges ela be'eretz Yisrael. That's number one. Shemitah is only in Eretz Yisrael. V'nechlaku chachamim im noheges b'chol zman orak bizman sheyovel noheg or b'fnei habayis b'lvad. The chachamim of the Gemara argued whether or not even Shemitah in Eretz Yisrael has a status of doraisa or derabbanan. When it's, that means everybody holds when the yovel is noheg, or when the bias is noyeg, there's Shemitah in Eretz Yisrael midoraisa. But the Chachamim argued when there's no yovel, there's no bias. Sheyesh oimim sheshviyas noheges gam bizman hazeh min haTorah, shelo karebi v'lo kabaya. So the Kesef Mishnah on the Rambam points out that there are those that say that Shemitah is noyeg im bizman hazeh min haTorah, not like Rabbi. The Ramban and the Rashba hold that Shemitah, even in Eretz Yisrael, Bisman today, is only midrabanan.
But if it's kitcha, there's kitcha l'shad, kitcha l'aktiv lavo, so the land is kodesh.
That's only that discussion relates to Yerushalayim, the Azaros only, because when they came in with Yoshua, there were two bios aretz. When they came into Yoshua, you're right, Walter, all of Eretz Yisrael was given kedusha.
But that's a machloikis. It's a machloikis till today, because even in Beit Sha'an, they said in Beit Sha'an you can plant and everything, because in Beit Sha'an, in the valley, it wasn't kitchel l'shaita, kitchel l'atid labor.
I'm explaining that, Shita.
Okay.
When Yoshua came in, all of the land was Niskadesh. But then they got thrown out. Then they came back with Ezra. Ezra was only Miskadesh certain areas. So the debate that we had, can you offer korbanos bisman hazeh? Because the Harabayis and the Azaros, there the Rambam and the Ravid argue whether kitchen b'shaitim kitchen. We paskin like the Rambam that it is kodesh. So that's only in Yerushalayim in that area. The rest, so this debate that we just discussed that I read through has nothing to do with the Indian Kiddush. Everybody holds that outside of Yerushalayim, there is no Kedusha. However,
so Shemitah is only the Rabbanan.
According to the Rashba, according to the Ramban and the Rashba, according to, who did I quote? According to the other Man Omar, according to the Kesef Mishnah, who was the Rav Yosef Karo, Yesh oimim sheshvius noeget gam bizman hazeh min haTorah. So it's a machlokas rishonim, whether or not Shemitah bizman hazeh is the Rabbanan, but it looks like most of the poskim say it's not. So therefore, I have a question: why do they have such a problem with Rav Kook's heter? If the whole Indian is only midrabanan, so they were probably worried about the shita of the Kesef Mishnah that is midaraisa.
Yeah, listen, we always make a problem.
Huh?
How's your mother feeling?
My mother, thank God, came home yesterday.
Okay, Baruch Hashem.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem.
Okay.
Shabbos, I visited her
The
yesterday.
the Indian of Kalayim, when does it take place? If let's say it goes by itself, so when is your?
You got to rip it out the moment
I
you
know.
know.
I know. When, in other words, as long as it's there, the Isser says you have to constantly bring korban. Let's say, can I wait 5 minutes? Can I wait 10 minutes? Or the chiyuv is on right away. And if I don't do it, let's say
You get malchus. You get malchus. If somebody gave you a hasra and said, if you don't pull this out right now, you're going to get malchus. You got to pull it out.
So I can't wait a day then. I can't wait a day.
If once you discover it, you've got to pull it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before, according to
but I'm
Rabbi
just saying is that let's say it's not, if you plant Kalayim, obviously the Isra is right that time. But if it comes to Me'atzmo, and then you find by yourself without Hasra. Let's say
Rabbi Kiva said you got to pull it out. Now I just
Right away.
I read you the Rishonim that said by just being passive, there's a lav shein b'maisa. So let's say you build a fence around it, so then you'd be chayav the malchus.
No.
Without doing an action, there's no malchus without a maisa. Yes, Walter.
but you still have the chiyuv to pull it out, though, right?
And you have a chiyuv to be oikered, absolutely.
So you can wait till tomorrow. So therefore, if Chalamot came, you can wait.
It's a lav. Just because you don't get malchus, you're still over a lav.
Love. Okay. Good Shabbos, everybody.
Okay, good Shabbos, everybody.
Shkoyach.